You're listening to Florida Matters live and local, broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WUSF in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty, and as it's Veterans Day, for the next hour, we're going to focus on the men and women who've served in the military. Our state is home to nearly 1.4 million veterans. Only Texas has more. And about 230,000 live in Pinellas, Hillsborough, Manatee, and Sarasota counties. For some veterans, adjusting to life outside the highly structured military is a challenge. But there's a local program which helps veteran entrepreneurs. The 26 West Entrepreneurship Center at State College of Florida in Bradenton offers a 3-month program to help grow or start a small business. It's open to veterans, active duty troops, and military spouses. Kim Richmond is the program's executive director and joins us now. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thanks for having me, Matthew.
And also with us, Josh Riley, a National Guard veteran who launched an AI business. Josh, thank you as well.
Good to be here. Thanks, Matt.
Josh, I want to start with you. You wrote an op-ed for the Sarasota Herald-Tribune, and in it you talk about life after the military. So just explain what it is you're trying to get across in this op-ed.
So I learned so much at my time in the military, a lot of life skills that I learned from my time. And when you get out of the military, sometimes it's hard to, life isn't always that structured, and it's sometimes hard to put yourself back into the regular throes of life with you coming from a place that was highly structured to something that's not structured. Sometimes it's difficult to make that transition.
What was your National Guard experience like?
I joined the National Guard in 2000 just because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I figured I'd give the military a chance. And I joined the New Hampshire Army National Guard. I did regular drilling, and then my unit got deployed to Iraq in 2004 for 13 months. That was quite an experience. And then when I came back, I utilized the GI Bill to get my degree in IT, which has really launched my career to where I am at today.
Yeah, I mean, what was that like signing up and then kind of a matter of months later, this war breaks out and you're sent overseas? Like, what was that moment like for you?
It was very terrifying. When I joined the military, I did not have it in my mind that I was going to serve any time in a combat zone. And then when I got my orders, my first sergeant called me on the phone near Thanksgiving. I was actually in North Carolina, just left my wife's grandfather's funeral. And I got the call on the way back to their house. My first sergeant read my orders, and I just remember being silent just to myself for about 60 seconds, trying to think, like, what does that mean? I'm going to a combat zone there was no end date at the time. We get our orders to go, but there is no 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. We had no idea how long we were going to be gone. So it was a little terrifying.
Now, in the piece you wrote for the Sarasota Herald-Tribune, you wrote about how you were missing a sense of mission, even though you enjoyed your guard work and you felt like you'd kind of made a career after the military. You were kind of missing that essential part. So where and how did you find that sense of mission once you'd left the military?
Once I started my career, I got a college degree. College really, kept me busy. Then when I got my degree, that was the structure that I was missing, was my career. So, there was always, you always have something to do. There's always somewhere to go, something to do in the military and in civilian life. Once I got my degree and I started my career, that was my structure. That was my mission, is to build my career.
Kim, what does the program do that you're leading?
So the Veterans Florida by 26 West program is designed specifically for veterans. Veterans, first and foremost, we thank all of our veterans and active duty military and spouses for their service to our great country. And we were chosen last year to be a partner with Veterans Florida it's a nonprofit that provides services of all kinds to veterans throughout the state. And the 26 West Entrepreneurship Center is one of only 10 partners across the state. So what we do is we structure the curriculum and the programming that brings veterans together and teaches them how to launch or grow a business. And what makes it so unique is that the program is taught by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. So it's not theory. It's really being taught by people who are currently running businesses, who have started them, who have failed with them, who have started all over again. And I think it's that learning from entrepreneurs and learning cohort style with other veterans and military families that makes this program so unique.
How does it line up with popular enterprises for non-veterans? Like, is there a difference in the kinds of businesses that veterans are trying to launch or sustain and civilians?
So we don't see dramatic differences because what we see is that people have skills and people have an idea. They find a need, a problem, and they can solve it. So, for example, Josh has a skill, and he sees this need of small businesses need to be able to leverage AI. Oh, wow, he can fill that need. So we see that as a common thread throughout our entrepreneurs, whether they're veterans or not. But what we do find is, again, this cohort style where veterans can actually feed off of each other. That's where we get that lift, if you will.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Kim Richmond, Executive Director of the 26 West Entrepreneurship Center at State College of Florida in Bradenton, and Josh Riley, a National Guard veteran who launched an AI-focused business. Josh, tell me more about the business. How did you decide that AI was what you were going to build into what you're doing now, and what does the business actually do?
Sure. So when I moved to Florida about 8 years ago from North Carolina, before that New England. But when I moved to Florida, I started a small IT support company, just servicing some small local businesses with their typical IT needs. And over the last couple of years, many of my clients started asking a lot about ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or Zapier. Like, what are these things? Like, how do I use them? So I realized very quickly there's a huge knowledge gap between small business and AI and automation. Small business owners are hungry to use this stuff but have no idea what it does, what it is, how to use it. So I pivoted my IT support company to build an AI and automation agency.
Okay. Is there any part of you that worries a little bit, like you're kind of leveraging this interesting new technology? It's got a lot of potential, but there's also a lot of people out there who need jobs, right? So is there a part of you that thinks I could be taking away a job from a veteran?
So, I mean, that's always should be in the back of everybody's mind when it comes to artificial intelligence. But really, in my view, artificial intelligence, if used properly, like my focus in AI Partner Solutions, my company, is not to replace people. So I focus on small business. Small business owners aren't looking to replace their people because they're usually running on tight staff, tight budgets, things like that. So the automations that we build really increase the amount of time that business owners have to focus on other aspects of their business or boosts revenue. It's not really designed to replace their people. Are there applications that do or could? Absolutely. But that is not the focus of AI Partner Solutions.
And Josh, you went through the program that Kim leads? I
did. And my wife, back when, I think it was last year, the beginning of last year, beginning of this year, right? Yes. My wife saw the advertisement for this program from 26 West, and I looked at the agenda, and it literally was everything that I was doing right now for my business. Like, I have the technical chops to do all the technical stuff, but it's the business side where I really, that's not my forte. So everything that was happening at the 26 West Center in this program was value propositions. It was, finances. It was just the things that I'm not that good at. So the timeliness of it was amazing. So I applied for it. I got accepted and I showed up. It was super easy to apply for and be a part of the program.
Kim, I wonder if you notice a difference between veterans who are doing this kind of program and other students. Like veterans, I imagine they wouldn't have a problem showing up on time, right? Because there's that sense of duty.
Definitely, sense of duty. But you know what it is? It's about motivation, and I think that is really what happens at 26 West. It's not your average run-of-the-mill kind of like college thing. It's a spectacular 40,000 square foot building, and I actually run 7 revenue-generating businesses out of there. So we like to inspire people because we are entrepreneurs ourselves, and that when people come, they come because they want to come, right? They come, and Josh's program went for 18 weeks in a row. We've structured it slightly differently this year, but 18 weeks in a row to come to learn, and every week everybody showed up. And out of duty, oh, for sure. I mean, we have military folks there, but the energy in the room was really palpable. I mean, you could really, AI, of course, but every topic that we went over, and again, we have a different instructor coach for each one. that's where the energy came from. And what I love is stories like Josh, who came in, who kind of had this vision for his business, but I watched him grow throughout the whole program, which is this, I didn't realize I should look deeper here in how I express what I can do for people. I didn't realize, I knew about financials, but I didn't actually realize this is how I can learn the levers of the P&L. So that's what we really like to see is, not just the duty I showed up because I was accepted and I got in, but I think that the energy, and I really love what Josh did is he has a certain technical skill, and he said to the rest of the people in the cohort, okay, I'm going to give everybody 1 free hour of consultation to help you with your HubSpot or any of your other technical things. So
great motivation.
Yeah, the camaraderie, again, is really, really powerful.
Josh, in the last few seconds we have here, what would your advice be to veterans who may be struggling to get back into civilian life?
Find a program like 26 West Center, the program that I went through, because the skills that you learn, just the business skills that you learn, that if you don't have a mission right now after the military, when you go through a program like that, that will give you, it'll launch the new mission for you to start a business. So I definitely recommend seeking out a program like that just to find your next mission.
Well, Josh Riley, National Guard veteran who launched AI Partner Solutions, company which uses AI to help businesses streamline their operations, and Kim Richmond, Executive Director of the 26 West Entrepreneurship Center at the State College of Florida in Bradenton. Thank you both so very much.
Thanks for having us.
Well, coming up, the last Tuskegee Airman died in September. There's a special connection between the Tuskegee Airmen and Sarasota, and you will hear all about it on Florida Matters Live and Local. Stay with us. Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Lots of extraordinary people live here in the Tampa Bay region. Some are bona fide heroes we don't realize live just down the street. Retired Lieutenant Colonel George E. Hardy is one. He died at a Sarasota home recently at the age of 100. Hardy was a Tuskegee Airman. They were the first black pilots in the American military, fighting in World War II when the military was segregated.
In July of 1941, 5 young Negroes made aviation history at Tuskegee, Alabama. These 5 men were the first of their race to graduate under the Army Air Force's newly organized plan for training Negro pilots.
Hardy flew dozens of missions over southern Germany and Italy in 1945. He told the American Veterans Center in 2019 the Tuskegee Airmen proved skeptics wrong.
So many fellows paid a price for that. So you lost a lot of good friends. But they were part of the effort to prove that we could fly as well as anyone else.
Hardy's military career continued after the forces were integrated by executive order in 1948. He flew dozens of missions during the Korean War and the Vietnam War. Trailblazing groups like the Tuskegee Airmen are celebrated for their achievements in battle and for challenging and overcoming segregation. But they couldn't have done what they did without the help of black nurses. White doctors wouldn't treat them. Pia Jordan is the author of Memories of a Tuskegee Airman Nurse and Her Military Sisters. She joins us to talk about the local connection to the Tuskegee nurses. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I have one regret about Lieutenant Colonel Hardy, though. Someone bought my book and had me autograph it for him. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to meet with him in Sarasota, but I never got to do that.
Oh, wow. That's a shame. So let me ask about your mother then. Tell me about her.
My mother was one of 28 nurses who served at Tuskegee Army Flying School during World War II. And it's funny, she arrived there in 1943. She had trouble getting in at first because initially black nurses weren't allowed in the Army Nurse Corps. Mm-hmm. And it was one nurse named Della Rainey who, even though they said that she couldn't join the American Red Cross, that was the recruiting arm of the Army Nurse Corps, she just wrote a letter to the person in charge saying, I really want to serve my country. That opened the door. So in 1942, about 4 or 5 nurses ended up at Tuskegee Army Flying School, where Hardy was. And actually, my mother arrived at Tuskegee Army Airfield in March of 1943, and Hardy arrived in September of 43.
Oh, wow. Now, your mother, Louise Virginia Lomax Winters, did you know growing up like what her backstory was, or did it take you a while to discover this part of her life?
What happened is, growing up, Mom, okay, you were in nursing school, you were in the military. I was a kid. I really didn't think much about it. I did see her uniform once, and I did see a scrapbook that she had, but it just didn't hit me, that, oh, my mother was part of history, as well as these other 27 nurses. Mm-hmm. So after I left broadcast journalism, I taught multimedia journalism. And at the university I taught, I told one of my colleagues, I'm so sorry, I never did anything. I'm a journalist. I never did anything about my mother, the nurses. And she said, start now. So in 2009, I flew around the country, got interviews, went around to the different museums, archives to get information about the nurses, found at least something about each one. So my book includes something about each of those 28 nurses. And then for those who had died, sometimes relatives, I was able to find some relatives who could also give information about them.
So just kind of in the process of writing this, did you realize the significance of what your mother and the other nurses had done and sort of how important that was to sustaining this really groundbreaking core of flyers?
Not until I started the research. And actually, she became ill, and that's when I looked at the scrapbook. And I said, oh, my goodness, my mother was part of the Tuskegee Airmen. And actually, that scrapbook I gave to the Smithsonian Institution, National Museum of African American History and Culture. So they have it on their website. So if anybody wants to see it, they can see it. But yeah, talking to other children of Tuskegee Airmen, and nurses, they were just mom and dad as we were growing up. And two, think about it. They were during a time when it was Jim Crow laws. Getting even into the military to be even seen was pretty major. So they might not have wanted to talk a lot about it because it was a painful period in their lives.
Is that the impression you got from your conversations with your mom?
Actually, my mother and I never talked about it that much, except when I saw the uniform and her scrapbook. For a hot minute, but think about it. I was probably about a teenager, and it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Moving on to my life.
Yeah. So you have this, you've got this book, the project, kind of celebrating her achievements, her life. But I mean, is there a part of you that regrets you didn't start sooner?
Yes, I didn't start until I was teaching. I was starting a second career, and yeah, because then I would have been able to interview her more about some of the things I had done, a little videotape for my son's high school teacher who was interested in her. But I was so sorry that I waited so long, that the book came out after she died. Actually, I was working on the documentary, and I'm still working on the documentary now.
I wanted to ask about Della Rainey. Who is Della Rainey, and what's her significance?
Della Rainey was their principal chief nurse. She was the one who opened the door for the Army Nurse Corps to even include African-American nurses. And as I mentioned earlier, she had tried to join the Red Cross, which were the recruiters. And these nurses, you have to remember, they were graduate nurses. They were RNs. To even get in the Army Nurse Corps, you had to be a registered nurse. But initially, they said no to her. But then, after she wrote a letter saying pretty much, I want to serve my country, they opened the door. That opened it for other nurses, but there still was a quota. Basically, initially there were only 56 African American nurses allowed. At the end of the war, 500 to 600 black nurses out of 59,000 nurses.
We hear a lot about the Tuskegee Airmen and the barriers they overcame, but was the story of the nurses and kind of them overcoming those barriers, that sort of happening in parallel, or did it sort of lag behind a little bit?
I think the entire country there were certain groups were trying to get, even in civilian hospitals, there were groups trying to get nurses to be included, black nurses to be included into civilian hospitals. African American men were basically janitors, worked in the kitchen, dug ditches when they were in the military. So for professionals to even be considered, that took a lot of people of different organizations, the government, and Roosevelt's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, she kind of pushed and to get African Americans to be considered in the military.
What would your advice be for folks who might have extraordinary people in their families, or people who may have extraordinary stories to tell? How would you get them, encourage them to start sort of talking and having those conversations?
Okay, this is what I would have them do. Thanksgiving is coming up, Christmas. whenever the family gets together, find that member, the older member, and even some younger ones because they have stories to tell. But find that member and put a phone, your recorder on, and start asking questions about whatever period they lived.
In the last few seconds here, if your mom were to sort of see this book and see the project you're working on, do you feel like you've done her legacy proud?
Oh, yeah, and I'm just sorry she died before she even saw it. So, yeah, I think she'd probably be crying right now, as I'm about to.
Well, Pia Jordan, we're going to have to leave it there, but Pia is the author of Memories of a Tuskegee Airman Nurse and a Military Sister. Thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Up next, we'll bring you voices from several Tampa Bay veterans. They recorded their stories earlier this year as part of the StoryCorps Military Voices Initiative. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local. More to come in a moment. Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. In honor of Veterans Day, we're bringing you the voices of several Tampa Bay veterans. They recorded their stories earlier this year as part of the StoryCorps Military Voices Initiative. First is Marvin Liebson. He served on the Pacific Front in the Army Air Corps during World War II. He later worked as an engineer at a Navy atomic lab in Pittsburgh building nuclear submarines. At age 100, Liebson recorded this conversation with his son, Larry Liebson.
I enlisted when I was 18 years old, and I tried before, I think, and they wouldn't take me because it was 1942 and everything was chaos. And they said, go back to school. So I started classes at college.
What was the new base that you were transferred to after your basic?
We went to glider training. The gliders are a piece of plywood. They used them in Burma in World War II to bring in the troops. A plane would tow you to your destination. Then they would cut the rope and let you glide down. The theory was that you would glide into the tree, so they would shear off the wings and you hope to get out alive. And our outfit was assigned to get an airfield ready. I also happened to be in New Guinea when they decided that one of our companies had to go to support the Burma operation. How did they make decisions of two companies? The two lieutenants of the company, or the captains, or I think, flipped a coin. I watched it, and I had heard that the guys in the Burma campaign, a lot of them were killed. So that was just luck from my part. We stayed in New Guinea to clean up the fields and get ready for the invasion of Philippines.
They used to call the gliders the flying coffins.
Yeah.
And they're made out of plywood. You have no protection. You have no armament on it. And you have no motor.
Some of us got enough nerve to go before the officers and say, we want out, make us paratroopers. And they call us a bunch of cowards. I was the kind of a guy with, no matter how bad it was, I would smile or laugh.
Your GI insurance just expired, right?
Oh, yeah. I took out the GI insurance. When I hit 100, they said to me, we no longer can pay the dividends on this insurance policy. The policy is completed. We'll pay you off.
The letter basically said, you've outlived the policy.
Yeah.
So you have to take the money.
You know what? The other insurance companies have done the same thing to me. I'm the guy that never wanted to be the richest guy in the block. All I wanted is enough to be comfortable You know, there's only one dinner you can eat.
If I can be half the man you are, then I will find that an accomplishment in my life.
Marvin Leibson died last month at age 101. In this interview, Sean Kaufman and Carlos Diaz Serrano reflect on their military careers. Kaufman has worked at U.S. Central Command in Tampa and served as a Green Beret. He now lives in Lakeland. Serrano retired in Tampa after serving in the Air Force.
For me, I knew the military was something that attracted me, like probably 7, 8. But it really didn't hit home until 9th grade. So we went to a base visit to Muniz Air Guard Base in San Juan. That's the first time I saw an F-16, like, right up close. That's when I decided to join, like, the Air Force. How about you, Sean?
I was an Army brat. Both my parents were in the Army. They actually met at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. My dad retired out of Germany, and we moved back to his hometown in Kentucky. I knew in Germany, though, that I wanted to go in the military, not just because my parents were in the military, but my grandmother had brought over a VHS of Top Gun, and I knew then I wanted to be a naval aviator. And so I did a few years of Air Force ROTC, and then 9/11 happens, and there was a shortage of pilots up to that point, and then there wasn't. And so I knew I was going to be a pilot, so I went down and talked to the Army. Went to basic training, commissioned, and that's how I got in the Army. How about some of the early years of Lieutenant or Captain Diaz Serrano?
So I joined the Air Force officially on July 29, 2005. And I was supposed to go from training to my base in Incirlik in Turkey. But before I went to Incirlik, I had to stop in Biloxi, Mississippi. 4 weeks into the Air Force when Katrina hit and like completely destroyed Biloxi, Mississippi. And they go like, well, you guys got to figure out how to make your way back to your bases. I get on a C-17. My first C-17 ride is on an evacuation with 200 or so airmen. The silver lining on this story is this is where I met my wife. My daughter was born. I was in Afghanistan. That was sad and cool, but I designed the network control center for Kandahar. At that time, that was one of the proudest things. I had to design the pad or the grounding, all that kind of stuff, so that was cool.
Yeah, I remember my first ride in a C-17. I didn't land in it. I actually jumped out of it. So that was a good experience. But so we go to Iraq. We're in Al-Anbar province. At that time, 2005, 2006, pretty volatile. And then we're gun truck security through the whole country. So I got to drive through Ramadi. I got to drive through Fallujah. That was a pretty good experience, but also it was my first exposure working with some special forces teams as well. So I knew that was something I wanted to get after.
What is one of the most proudest moments in your career?
I was in Israel on October 17th, 2023, so 10 days after October 7th. Some of the guys I worked with before and like looking them in the face on how bad October 7th was and the stuff that they had been dealing with and seeing both sides of it, like the Palestinians, what were having to deal with too. But I would say being able to be there, having a career at that point where I'm sitting at a little over 19 years and being able to use all my experience that led me up to that point. For you, getting ready to wrap up a career, what's next?
I do want to be a business owner here in the next 3 to 5 years. I will just explore and be exposed to as many things as I can just so I can figure out what my niche and my passion is. There's so many sacrifices that we make in the last 20 years. For me, the first 4 years my daughter was born, I was gone half of it. And everyone says, hey, thank you for your service. But the family, the spouses don't get to hear that a lot, and they make the most sacrifices. One of the main reasons I decided to retire here in Tampa is like, it was starting to affect like my daughter.
I was actually the first one that got to hold my daughter, so I would say to her that there's a lot of times that I couldn't be there, but I looked at it as I was doing stuff to make sure that she could have the best life.
Next, we hear Andrew Walker's conversation with his father, 100-year-old Mordecai Walker, about his experience living in New Guinea during World War II. After the war, he spent decades as an agriculture teacher in Hillsborough and Pinellas counties.
You were recommended for the National Youth Administration Program. That was a program where junior and senior high school students went to Bethune-Cookman College. What did you study there?
I studied radio.
And then you got drafted.
All black soldiers was drafted to Camp Landing. the little place out from Jacksonville,
Mm-hmm. That was what year?
1943. I did my nation training at Fort WUSF, Virginia.
There was an interesting story. Part of your training, you had to go through a swamp and step on logs.
We had to cross about a 100-foot wide pond. Out of 130 men, I was the only one who wasn't wet.
You didn't get wet. You were the only one out of 130 something.
Yeah. The lieutenant, he was, I guess, amazed that
because you weren't wet.
I wasn't wet.
And how do you account for that? That you were able to make it across this 100-foot pond without getting wet?
You know, one thing, I came up in the country.
That's right.
And I've been working in the pond, cutting posts during my younger life. I jumped on a log and stumped the stump. And he was saying, "Soldier, where you came from?"
You traveled by ship or?
Yeah, I got so seasick I didn't know what to do.
And where did you end up?
Well, we stopped 3 weeks in New Caledonia, but we stayed on ship. We was up there and went to French Haven, New Guinea.
Now, during that 2 years period, tell me about, a day in the life of a soldier.
See, that was our job. Anti-aircraft, and the only way they could attack us was by air. We had called radar. They could recognize the airplane about 10 miles before it got to us. We attempt to shoot it down.
You eventually went to the Philippines. You noticed that the guys were getting depressed. You came up with a project to kind of give them some mental relief.
Yeah, I asked the commanding officer, "Can we landscape the building?" He thought I was about crazy myself.
You called for volunteers, and what happened?
Well, I had more volunteers than I could handle.
Oh, more than you could handle. You felt like that helped the morale?
Yeah, no it did.
You met General MacArthur, right? Or you were in a convoy with him?
I was in a convoy with him.
The people in your regiment, these are some like Chappie James. These are people in history that we read about. You were in an all-black unit?
Yeah.
Except for the lieutenant was white.
Yeah.
Okay. But your regiment was the 742nd, okay?
Anti-aircraft unit.
Anti-aircraft unit. The war ended. You took a ship back to California?
Yeah, Frisco, yeah.
Okay. Everybody was just glad the war was over with. And then you hit a certain part of the United States. It might have been the Mason-Dixon line or...
When we got to Savannah, Georgia, the colored soldiers, that's when we got separated.
So you had ridden the train together as a group.
Yeah.
All black and white soldiers together. And then when you hit Savannah, they told you needed to go to different places to eat dinner.
Yeah.
How do you feel about being one of the few World War II veterans left?
Well, I know I'm getting old.
Mordecai Walker was born on the 4th of July. He died in August at age 101. Friends and colleagues Derek Smith and Susie Bogdan discussed their military service and careers as government civilians. Smith is a retired sergeant major in the U.S. Army. Bogdan served 20 years in the Air Force. They worked together at the Joint Special Operations University at MacDill Air Force Base.
What was your most proudest moments while you were on active duty?
Do you know what my first job was in the Air Force?
No, I do not.
It's an aircraft maintenance squadron of 750 people.
Oh, my God.
And I'm the section commander. So I'm in charge of the administration and discipline. I'll tell you some of the sad things. It was during the don't ask, don't tell era.
Yeah.
And so they were disciplining people if they came out as homosexual.
Right.
Well, they were kicking you out.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the discharge packages.
Okay.
And they had a guy who was being processed for discharge. He's one of the, and he was very well respected, and all the guys really liked him and stuff. It was like a police officer. It was a sting operation. Like it was supposed to be. Yeah. So he was just so professional and so awesome. And we had to take away from the Air Force, who was like this amazing human being.
I had a similar situation. During the Vietnam era, guys that didn't want to come in, they would say that they were gay. Well, Watkins, very prominent story in the U.S. In 75. He stated he was gay. They didn't believe him. They said, sure, put him in the Army. I got to Fort Lewis in 1977. Watkins was in uniform. He had a purse.
Oh, wow.
But eventually he was able to PCS, permanent
Was he like
change,
Klinger from
Yeah,
MASH?
just like Klinger. So how about deployments?
Yeah, I went to Iraq for
Okay.
a year.
How was that?
I loved it.
Okay.
I actually thrived there.
Did
I
you?
was like,
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, right? It's just weird because I'd never gone, and I was the International Military Education and Training Manager.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt good. And I love the Iraqi people.
Right.
I can't wait to go back there again.
In some capacity or another, I've been doing this for 48 years.
Yeah.
And whether it's in uniform or as a civilian, we're very resilient and very, very flexible. Yeah.
We'll get through it one way or another, right?
We will.
StoryCorps' Military Voices initiative provides a platform for veteran service members and military families to share their stories. Still to come, we introduce you to someone who helps veterans get mental health support through art. You're listening to Florida Matters Live and Local. More to come after this. Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Today we're sharing stories about veterans in the Tampa Bay area and those who support them. One area that a lot of veterans need support with is mental health. The Department of Veterans Affairs identifies suicide as the 12th leading cause of death for veterans. And when you focus on veterans under 45, suicide is the second leading cause of death. We're joined by Mac Maxim, founder of the Veterans Arts Center, Tampa Bay. Their focus is on mental health healing and suicide prevention through alternative therapies. They focus on area service members, veterans, first responders, and their families. Veterans can take classes in painting and other media to express themselves or try yoga and meditation. Mac, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it. Yeah.
You're an Army veteran, and I read that it was while you were training ROTC students at the University of South Florida where the idea for the Arts Center emerged. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I volunteered to go down to USF St. Pete active duty when I was in the Army. And that was, I did develop partnership agreements with Eckerd, St. Pete College, Clearwater Christian, recruit, do the curriculum. And so once we started growing, we were doing Army PT at 5, 6 a.m. in the morning, waking everybody up. Yeah. And I had this vision or like an epiphany with all the different arts. And that was back in 2011. Mm-hmm. So then I met one of our supporters and donors, Paul Stavros. Gus Stavros' son, and we became friends, and he said, Major Mac, go big or go home. Since 2014, we do alternative therapies through the arts, of course, mental health healing, suicide prevention for military, for veterans, first responders, and families.
Yeah.
We secured a center for about 6 years in West St. Petersburg where we created that destination of healing and programming, not a museum or gallery. It's a very unique thing that we're doing. And, of course, COVID, landlord, and gentrification, we closed it down or did not renew our lease. So we had to, change in doing remote programming and remaining constant in our mission, our programs, and the alternatives.
Yeah. Have you had some experience with art therapy before you launched this, or was this kind of new territory for you?
No, I just, I was a field artillery officer, different command, staff, leadership positions, and I just kind of learned as I went, make mistakes and learned about the non-for-profit world. But I just say it's just keep going, never quit, and just figure it out.
Yeah.
And that was
do you have some like kind of artistic inclinations yourself?
Well, yeah, but I think that how I've created the organization is art.
Yeah.
The structure, the vision, and that's tangible. That's arts. But people say, yeah, you're an artist, and I did some tap dancing, like to do a fundraiser for some of our events in the past, and got me on the Kelly Clarkson show. But that's another story too. So it's just creating stories, memories, and laughter, and that's healing in itself. That's my personal mantra.
I wonder about the challenges though that veterans are facing. Like when you were in the military, did you kind of have an idea of how tough it was for some veterans coming out and trying to adjust back to civilian life and the the kind of mental health struggles that a lot of folks were going through?
Yeah, so it's for us, it's the whole gamut from Vietnam, Gulf War, Afghanistan, and Iraq, even the spouses as well. So it's all inclusive and bringing people together off of that. So it's different issues. We're not, HIPAA. We're not medical. That's the VA, and the alternative, and it keeps us safe as well. But it's a very niche venue that we're doing, or a kind of a segment. And I could do everything in the 20 years of a service to the nation, deployments, combat, or whatever. But I feel that these 12 years that we have done this, we have prevented suicides, and we have numbers, and our outcomes of every course or class is written testimonials. We have hundreds of them, and so we are up to 6 prevented suicides, and how I account for that is a testimonial, in person, or an email. And so we just recently were working on the last 9 months of a major exhibit. We like to bring in contracted exhibits every kind of 4 to 5 years to unify and educate what we're doing. And we brought the Gold Star Tribute Wall in for about 3 days from Georgia. And this was a memorial exhibit of Gulf War, Afghanistan, and Iraq fallen names. So Birch Barracuda hosted this. We had a huge motorcycle escort that came in from Georgia. The ceremony was last Saturday. We had a lot of VIPs, 16 or 17 Gold Stars, a part of the naming ceremony. We had General Flynn, General Hartstall, the Lieutenant Governor, a lot of elected officials, but that's not what was important. What was important about it is we brought people together through this exhibit. And then the last day of the exhibit, we had Soul Circus Cowboys. So I'm kind of tapped out, but I got to re-gear now and focus on the end of the year. And also we unveiled a vision and a new center that will be built or constructed hopefully in the next, I would say, 3 to 4 years.
Right.
But it's all, yes, sir.
So you had to kind of shut things down, as you said, because of gentrification and whatnot, but now you have a vision for a new home.
Yeah, we unveiled it at the ceremony. As well as one of our gifts that we gave to our VIPs and sponsors was Sarah May. She's on our board, and she is a quadriplegic. And she did a commissioned artwork, and she does art with her mouth.
Wow.
So we added the power, the emotional to what we're trying to do. But it was pretty much a very, very perfect ceremony. I mean, I'm an Army guy because you got to do ceremonies, right?
Sure.
But we hit the mark. We honored the fallen in order to save lives for our organization and change lives through this little thing called arts. It's a very simple concept.
Yeah.
But
I want to hear more about the kinds of programs and outreach your organization has done for service members and the public. Now, you've talked about the ceremony you just had, but you also have art exhibitions. I know you've got peer-to-peer support groups, community outreach programs. I was looking on the Facebook page, and I saw there's like a drum circle.
Yes.
Tell me about some of those
things. We're going to finish up the year with the Blick Annual Art Supply Drive. We don't have to worry about that. Our community outreach toy drive, we're doing a grant, and then also we're doing and conducting rehearsals of the plastic drumming cans. So we have around 8 veterans and spouses that are rehearsing. And then in 2026, we'll do a capstone at Stageworks.
And these are kind of like empty paint cans.
Yeah, they're just little paint cans with sticks.
Drums.
Yeah, and it's really neat that how you see the involvement of the team, the rehearsals, and you see this healing thing. Because I have to observe like all of these courses and classes and how I view the success or not of it. So we focused this year on a lot of female veterans with mindful art, which we had. I read the last prevented suicide at our ceremony. I wish I brought it with you, but I could read that. But that was a very powerful testimony that I felt compelled. We need to read that without any names because it's private.
Yeah.
So.
Just kind of reflecting on what you were saying about your career in the military, I mean, do you sometimes reflect back on the last decade or so and think, how did I end up here? Because it's very different what you're doing now from your service, right? I mean, it's kind of the skills you're using are different. The kind of how you're helping people is a lot different from what you were doing in the military.
Yeah, so it's epiphany. Well, it's all of these probabilities since I went down to USF St. Pete. That was a struggle because it was hard to stand up the organization. And so, but it was successful. When I retired, we had staff, we had a building, we had cadets, we were contracting and commissioning our future officer corps. So I created that. I created some other national internship programs and stuff. But this was more of a, it's hard to describe, I say it, a divine favor or an epiphany. Because I was back in February of 2021, where I live now, town and country, I was walking back from, and it's not a pity party here, but it's a story. And I was walking back from the gym and walking across the crosswalk, and an automobile rammed into me. Now, when you do 20 years and you deploy and you do casualty assistance, and you know, all of these other things with war wounds and killed in action and the effects of war, I had a double subdural hematoma, fractured toes, fractured wrist, brain surgery, memory loss of speech.
Wow.
So when I woke up from brain surgery, my brain surgeon says, Mac, you're blank and lucky to be alive. And people on the outside say, oh, you're protected. You are protected by God or with the forces or the universe out there. So these are things that I don't have to do it. I feel that let's create this legacy.
So you felt like you got a second chance to help some folks.
Yeah. And so you just keep on. And then last February, we got the Lightning Award, which paid off the contract for the Gold Star Tribute Wall. So all of these things are just kind of probabilities, frequencies, and I'm just going based off of what, hey, I'd rather do something instead of do nothing, and let's build the bridge. So our goal is to get a new center. We're working on all the details of that. It's going to be fundraising, and it would be great for USF or a private college to build this. But we've got some interest in the city of Clearwater, Fran Hash, some other folks that I just got to bring it together, fundraise, build, and we already have all the budget. It's all ready to go. Yeah. It's just now it's building it. It's getting to that. So I felt compelled because since we don't have a home, we're not preventing suicides. And it's always in the back of my mind.
So this next building is pretty important. Mac Maxim, founder of the Veterans Arts Center Tampa Bay, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Be safe.
Well, next time on Florida Matters, live and local, if you get health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, your premiums could go up a lot at the end of the year. How much are you going to be paying? And are you worried about how you'll afford healthcare? Call and leave us a message, 813-755-6562, and tune in. We'll talk about it 12 noon on Wednesday. That's our show for today. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horace. Lily Belcher is our intern. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Garvin. Jackson composed the theme music, and Chandler Balcom handled the video. Production assistance for today's show from Amy Tardif. Subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcasts, and watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.